Hi, my name is Ray Daw, and this is my Lab 2 presentation. So just to get started, a little background information about this lab. Um, Pretty much the whole goal was to find the charge on a piece of tape, um, and do so and then find the force on each piece of tape from the other. Um, and really the way that we first did this was using 2 point charges, or treating the tape as 2 different point charges, and recording the point where um, the force of the electric force and the force of gravity were equal, which is where the tape first started to float. And the equation we used in the first lab for the electric force is that second bullet. Um, and really all we had to do there was to solve for the only unknown, which was the charge, assuming that the tapes had equal charge. But for this lab, we used a little bit more accurate model. We treated the tape as a rod. So basically a line of point charges. And the equation that we use to calculate that is the last bullet, or for the electric field. So these are the different measurements I got. Length of my tape, the mass of each one. The distance is the distance where they first started to repel each other noticeably. So that is where we could set the force of gravity equal to the electric force. That fourth bullet is at that point what the force of each was. And the reason we know that the electric force is 0.025 is not because it was calculated, but because we could set it equal to the gravitational force. And the charge right there is the charge of each piece of tape. And this comes from the equation at the bottom there. So this is the code that I ended up having. The top picture is what I use to calculate the electric field. The input, you just put in the charge of a particle, and then the observation location, and it runs through the formula there. And then the second picture is where you're sort of declaring each piece of tape and the different qualities it has, the position and everything else, and then the charge, mass, and then N is the number of point charges, pretty much, that would make up the rod. And then the last picture is just a couple for loops that would go through and calculate the electric field on each different point charge across the rod, and create a final arrow to sort of point in the direction of the final electric field from each piece added up. So this is the result I got. It's a little off. The numbers don't make sense because obviously we said before that the gravitational and electrical force must equal each other. I tried everything, but I didn't quite know what I did wrong there. And then the model on the left that I got from my code is a little off as well. And there on the right is what I believe it should look like, with the electric field of each charge on the top tape represented by the smaller arrows, and then the total electric field and the electric force being equal to the force of gravity. So obviously my model wasn't exactly right, but I still do think that if I had ended up doing this right, that the model and calculations for the charge of the rod for the tape would be more accurate than just using a single point charge model to model the tape, because obviously a rod is a little bit more representative of what a piece of tape is. For this, we still had to assume it was just a single straight line instead of kind of like a rectangle, like a piece of tape is. We also assumed that each tape would have the same charge and that they don't really have any thickness, which it seems like they don't, but really they have a little more than we used in the calculations. So yeah, that is about it. Thank you for listening.